Hello, you multi-majestic multi-moors. And thank you to Dan Swank for providing the malt mention, introducing Ralphie Review 1016 Extras. This is an extras review because I've just reviewed in 1016 the winner or a representative of the winner of the Best Independent Bottlers 2023 as voted for by the online Scotch whisky community globally in the category of Best Independent Bottler, because it's widely available, it's accessible, huge variety, and compared to other in some other independent bottlers at an accessible price. It's signatory, and this is a bourbon hogshead matured Mortlach. That's what I reviewed as my choice to represent signatory. And in fact, after the online Scotch Whisky Awards in November, I contacted it would be before. It was definitely before, because Signatory won the previous year, you see. So I contacted Signatory and said, hey, Ralphie here. I'm coming up to 14 years as a whisky reviewer and other quality spirits. And I'm celebrating 1,000 reviews, which is highly unusual in the internet. Someone can get through 1,000 different bottles of spirits and still be keen as mustard to review more. The secret of success, by the way, is just not to drink too much and take your time. Keep it steady, keep it consistent. And I said, would you be interested in a partnership? Because I'll be bottling some of my own whisky and rum, which I've got a wee stash of casks. And would you like to provide a bottling where I'll buy at least 4 of the bottles. So what I get out of it is just my name and the label. I don't get a fee or anything, because the idea is that some of the profits, in fact the profits they're making from the bottling, go to a charity that is designated by the company that's bottled the spirit. And Signatory designated the Air Ambulance Service, the Scottish Air Ambulance Service, who do a phenomenal job in the remote highland mountainous landscape of picking up people who have fallen, taken a tumble, broken the leg, and are unable to walk, move, and there's no way an ambulance can get access to them, so it has to be air rescue. And it's a voluntary charity that organises and attends to that, and they do a phenomenal job. And you can go and check out in your search engine and see what they do. So that's what Signatory did, and they bottled something really, really interesting to appeal to my fans, my audience, the whisky enthusiasts. They bottled a 16-year-old Glenlivet from a fresh sherry cask, as you can see from this natural dark colour, at full cask strength, and it had been matured for 16 years. And I'll just give you a little bit of information about it, because it's got a very unusual circumstance, which is of particular interest to experienced whisky drinkers. So it's the distilled at Glenlivet Distillery, distilled March 2007, bottled in May 2023, a first fill Oloroso sherry hogshead number 900158, of which 288 bottles were produced, unchill filtered, natural colour, cask strength, and the cask strength is 65.7%. Yes, you heard me right. 65.7%. That's unusual, because you may be thinking, if that's the strength after 16 years in a sherry hogshead. What strength was the new make spirit when it went into the cask? And the fact is that it probably the new make spirit went into that cask at what's called still strength of roughly 70 to 73% volume alcohol. Because that's generally what you get off double distillation in pot stills. With triple distillation, you can get over 80% alcohol. But normally what happens is distillers reduce the still strength new make liquor with some water to bring it down to roughly 64% before they put it into casks, for two reasons. They only tell you one reason. The one reason that they'll tell you is it's so as to moderate the interaction between spirit and cask so that the maturation is softer and not so aggressive. And that's absolutely true. But there's a second reason, and that is the fact that when you bring down the strength of the alcohol before you put it into a cask, it reduces your insurance liabilities in that cask slightly. Because a super high strength cask of liquor is basically got the composition of a bomb. In other words, it would explode rather than just ignite and burn. At 64%, your liquor, should the worst happen, should there be a fire in the warehouse, is more likely to burn rather than explode, which means that the fire professionals tackling the fire have got more of a chance to control it. That's the second reason that you very rarely hear about. So I've got this whiskey 65.7%. So when it comes to sherry monsters, there's little monsters, there's big monsters, and then there's giga monsters. And this is a giga monster. It's not even at this strength at 6, 7 or 8 years old. This is 16 years old. And because of the additional strength of alcohol within the liquor in the cask, going deeper into the wood, because alcohol is far more solvent than water. I mean, water is a solvent, but alcohol is a far more aggressive solvent than water, particularly at higher strength. And therefore, the alcohol, because of the original cask strength of probably 72%, roughly, it's gone deeper into the wood and it's taken more out of the cask during maturation. And in 16 years, it hasn't lost a lot of its strength. So it's been higher for longer in the cask. So when you approach this, it's not just a sherry monster, it's a giga sherry monster. The nose is simply enormous. And yet, it's almost subdued because of the age of the whiskey. So you're getting this balance between super sherry monster, but because of the age of the whiskey, because of its years in wood, it's sort of toned down and it's almost condensed like a cordial. And the results are very singular indeed. Glenlivet, by the way, carries the experience wonderfully well because it's a fairly rich malt in its honest, raw state. Rather, before it gets kind of sanitised for standard consumer bottlings, which I totally get the point they need to do to make it palatable for lazier, inexperienced palates. But when you nose this, it's wonderfully spicy. The spiciness is coming not just from the sherry, but really coming from the sherry wood. I honestly wonder if it's been European oak used to make these sherry hogsheads rather than American white oak. It's certainly, there's that nuttiness note to it, almost that kind of linseed oil type aspect to it. Very concentrated in those, and when we taste it, absolute pure alcohol nip. Not that nip, not that nip, that nip. And yet, you can sip it neat. It's nippy. It's big nip, but it's not too nippy. And it really shows you this accelerated, aggressive maturation, 16 years. And then you get something so well matured. It's tempting, if you do add water to whiskey, to add a lot because of the strength. Big mistake. You can still easily drown this. You need to add water gradually. I've added 5 millilitres with my magic teaspoon. It's a very precise measurement because it's a ladle. And then I leave it. And I leave it for a good 10-15 minutes before I add any more water. And then I'll nose it, because the nose provides me guidance as to where it's going. The slight smokiness and mustiness coming from the cask is delightful. This isn't a sherry finish. This is a real, full-on, traditional, really good quality sherry cask event. And I'm really chuffed, and I don't take it for granted because there's many distilleries would say no. But I'm quite confident that Signatory, and my other partnership was with Ardnamurchan Distillery, they have got some very good visibility out of this connectivity. And I am absolutely delighted to have the association. It's not the first time, by the way. In my 10th anniversary in 2019, just before pandemic lockdown, I had a partnership with Glenallachie, who bottled some splendid stuff, both in Europe and in the USA, and also had North Star bottle a very assertive Colila for the Bon Accord bar in North Street. And we bottled a 4-year-old Ben Nevis for the Good Spirits Company, which was an absolute banger. And for me, I mean, what I get out of it is the association, the connectivity. To have a really lovely label, which is well thought out, and it just totally delivers the Ralphie experience in a way which is unique and totally one-off. And I really appreciate this kind of connectivity. And I think that it helps reinforce the fact that although at times we feel that in the world of whiskey we're in one side of this river of commerce as the consumer, and the industry's on the other side of the river as the provider, the experience provider, and there's not much room to meet in the middle unless it's through a marketing department. Well, in fact, that's not necessarily the case. There are times when an onliner like myself can approach a business, a relatively small business and an independently minded business, and say, I tell you, do you want to have a link up? Do you want to have a partnership here? Let's do something unique and really interesting. And again, this ties in with the purpose of the independent bottler and why they're so important to the reputation of Scotch whisky, particularly single malt Scotch whisky, is that they do things differently. They do provide these challenging whiskies, these not so easy access whiskies, which official bottlers, as they control their brand and control their message, control their portfolio, they're not inclined to take the risks with their stock that independent bottlers would do. And Signatory does it very well. Now, I'd conclude by saying, as with all bottlings of whisky, you don't just jump in and buy because of age statements and names and labels and such. Quality does vary. Importantly, it's the quality of what suits your palate. You've got to understand this and really do your homework so that when you buy a whisky, you're taking a very educated and calculated guess rather than a lucky shot. That's important. With the independent bottlers, you will find them in the speciality shops. Speciality shops, liquor shops, the specialists, particularly as they're kind of offloading their Diageo stock, because Diageo don't want to trade with companies with less than £2 million a year sales. I mean, this frees up the shelf space in the small specialist shop to focus on the smaller distilleries and the independent bottlers, to feature them and the strengths that they provide with the knowledge that the staff can have in the shops that they bring to help their customers make purchase decisions. This is very, very important. Supermarkets can't do this, neither can Amazon. In fact, with the rating system in Amazon, you're getting some very misleading information there, by the way, in my opinion. So watch yourself and be careful. But in the meantime, I'm going to conclude by saying this has really been available to my Patreon subscribers, who are really the only people that are notified about this bottling. But there may be a few bottles of this left at the Good Spirits Company, which has been the exclusive retailer for Ralphie.com bottlings so far. And you'll find them online. They're based in Glasgow. They're a small family shop, so they don't have a big network for posting and delivering and all the rest of it. They are constrained because of their size and their capacity. But they do have possibly a few of these bottles left if you're interested in a fairly unique, provenanced and unusual Sherry Giga Monster. And there you have it. I'm Ralphie, in the bothy, delivering malt moments. Because the malt moments are many and varied, which is the way it should be, malt mates. And there you have it. Just saying. Job done. So, I hope you've enjoyed this review. I actually look forward to seeing more onliners and more people in whisky clubs as well. A whisky club, commissioning not necessarily a whole cask to be bottled, but perhaps sharing and buying a cask in a distillery, or buying a small proportion of a single cask, and maybe having 2 dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen bottles just with the whisky club's label on it. It makes things more personalised. It's perfectly doable, and I'm sure some independent bottlers will be certainly interested to consider that as an option. Just saying, just sharing. It's up to you if you're in a whisky club, or if you're in a whisky group. It's up to you to make your inquiries, because there's nothing more unique than uniqueness. See you soon, malt mates. Bye-bye.